I used to think a miter saw station needed to look like this, and a workbench had to be like this, and a workstation had to resemble this. Now I know that my thinking was wrong. To save the most space in my workshop, I have built my furniture to be able to fold, rotate, or move in some way. But not all space-saving hardware is created equal, and 3 types may even be dangerous. I am in a one-car garage workshop, but it's only 198 square feet, which is smaller than typical one-car garages. Those are generally 240 to just over 300 square feet. That is what made me build this guy right here on the wall, because I knew I needed to save space. This folding workbench is This workbench is held on the wall partly by these 2 little gate latches. I sell plans for this workbench, and I had a potential customer ask me how much it weighs because they were wondering whether or not they could lift it onto the wall, so I literally put it on a scale and it weighs 97 pounds. But these gate latches are not holding all 97 pounds. They are holding a small fraction of that weight. So they've been great and I've never had an issue with them. Good job, you're doing great. Another way I've ensured that this stays on the wall is this bottom support piece, which has a rabbet cut into it that the plywood tabletop slides into. That ensures that it stays nice and tight against the wall. What makes the legs on this actually fold in and out is just some 5.5-inch hex bolts. I've also never had an issue with these legs folding out from the wall on their own. Ooh, that was a cool sound. Because there is still some friction on here depending on how tight you tighten the nuts on the bolt. Now for this foldable workstation, these Posi-Lock folding leg brackets are really cool. When they're folded like this, they lock in place, and then to unfold them, there's a button on the side of each one, and then when you unfold it, it also locks in place. When I'm ready to unfold it, I just undo these chest latches, and then I'm ready to go. Although these brackets have worked well, I will say that if you don't have a support piece like I have here, these will move side to side a little bit. So I would highly suggest adding some sort of support so that there's not nearly as much side to side movement. Okay, potentially dangerous hardware, number 1. I've seen people use some hydraulic hardware on each side of a folding desk like this, and to me, in some use cases, it doesn't seem like it could be quite strong enough. In a design like this, there are 2 legs firmly on the ground, so it can hold 180 pounds of man like you see here, no problem. And if I'm working with a piece where I have to put a lot of pressure down on the bench, I'm just more comfortable with legs on the ground. So how does this workstation actually fold? It's really quite simple. I used a 48-inch piano hinge that I cut down to size to fit this specific workstation. And it's worked really well for a few years with no issues. Before I get to the folding mechanism of my middleweight folding workbench, I want to get to these casters that I get asked about a lot. These are called retractable casters because, wait for it, you're on the edge of your seat, they are casters that retract. Mind blown, brains on the ground. I really like these casters because unlike traditional casters, which have the wheels on the ground at all times, when you're ready for your piece of furniture to be solidly on the ground, the casters retract and then the legs are on the ground very firmly and the wheels are off, making the shop furniture nice and sturdy. For this folding workbench, these legs fold in, and I know this isn't technically hardware, but this middle lower wooden piece keeps the leg from folding in along with these toggle latches. You might also see these called toggle latch clamps, and it's a really nifty piece of hardware that secures the legs in place so they don't fold in. Now let's show you how this semi-beefy tabletop actually folds up. How does that sound, Bob? Bob's on board. This workbench is 31 inches by 60 inches, and it's the primary workbench that I use because I found it's the perfect size for my small shop. We have hinges that are 3.5 inches by 3.5 inches, and that's how the tabletop folds up, and that's also how the legs folded in. Now, if you come a little closer, sorry, my cameraman is out of town. He's in the Swiss Alps with his wife and 6 kids and 17 cats. There we go, a little closer. Okay. You'll see that there is some Gorilla Glue squeeze out here that I used on the hinges. I decided to use that polyurethane glue along with the screws to ensure that the tabletop would be nice and secure, and here's why. Because these workbench legs are now firmly on the ground, you can see that the workbench is nice and sturdy, but it's not ready for use until I give it the ultimate seal of approval. Yep, that's not going anywhere. Okay, potentially dangerous hardware number 2. And maybe this is just me overbuilding everything I put my hands on, but maybe not. Here where the hinges are is a potential weak spot, and I thought if I didn't use Gorilla Glue and just use screws, if I put something really heavy in this area, I could have problems. Now it would probably be fine, but I have a phrase that I made up on my own with no help from anybody else, and I've never heard it before and neither have you. Better safe than sorry. Hopefully that phrase catches on because I think it's a really good one. Now I haven't really shown this in my videos, but I am a wood turner. I turn wood on my lathe, and I got a great piece of wood in the mountains this weekend. The only issue is the end of it is pretty gnarly, as you'll see in a second, and to get working on it, I really need to clean up that end. And I feel like a little kid because I've been having a blast playing around with this new tool I got, a mini chainsaw that's going to be perfect for this job. I didn't think I would like this tool as much as I did, but it worked really well. Honestly, I've never used a chainsaw before, but I felt super safe using this. It has a safety button you have to push, so you won't just accidentally turn it on by pushing on the trigger. It's battery powered and the batteries don't take too long to charge, and this mini chainsaw was really user-friendly, I found. Once the battery is in, you're basically ready to start using. Not even basically, you are ready to start using. This log was a little bigger than the chainsaw blade at some of the points, but it was no big deal. If I got to a part of the log that was too big, I just went to the other side to finish the cut. It's also really lightweight, so anybody can use it. I really feel that InoKraft made a solid tool. My plans for this beautiful piece of wood is to first stabilize it with some black epoxy because it does have some cracking, and then I'll turn it into 3 wooden vases. Thank you to InoKraft for sponsoring this video. I'll talk about the last piece of potentially dangerous hardware in a few minutes in the next project, but this folding bracket is one of the main reasons I made this video. I get asked often what folding brackets I use for my mobile miter saw stations. These folding brackets have been so great, I've used them on the king size mobile miter saw station, on the compact mobile miter saw station, and on the wing on the mobile table saw cart. I chose the black color because I thought it would look nice, and they're really easy to install and work well in my experience. I'll put links to all the hardware I talk about in this video in the description below. They lock in place, and I use the 16-inch version for this miter saw station and the 12-inchers for the mobile table saw cart. Now, I know it's probably bad form to be super excited about something that I built and say it verbally out loud to all of you. And yeah, this mobile table saw cart is awesome, but my favorite part is this foldable wing. I just think it's so cool, and it gives me the capability to cut really wide pieces of plywood. Love you, buddy. I've been woodworking long enough to know that the woodshop can be a dangerous place. So anytime I have the chance to make my shop safer, I take it. That's why I wanted to talk about some potential dangers and how to avoid them, with danger number 3 coming up. The flipping hardware, and I'm not just using that as a slang term, this actually flips, on this 2-for-1 tool cart gives this the potential to be very dangerous. Before we go on to the hardware, I've had the garage door open because the lighting is way better with it open, and there's flies flying around, there's trucks driving by, loud noises, lawnmowers. So thank you for still watching this video with all that going on. Here's how this tool works. I've attached the planer on one side and the rigid oscillating belt / spindle sander on the other, and when I unscrew the thingamabobs, I can flip this around back and forth and use whichever tool I want, and then tighten the thingamabobs back in once I'm ready to use the tool. I used a 3/4 inch steel tube for the flipping hardware, which is hidden inside this tabletop and then capped off with this piece of plywood. Okay, what's the potential danger of this? I've seen some people use a wooden dowel, and that just makes me a little nervous. I went with a steel tube because it just gave me more confidence that it was gonna hold up. Now the wooden dowel might hold up just as good, but the steel tube just gave me more confidence. If you're going to go with a wooden dowel, I would use one that's thick with 3 C's, and if you can find one that's a big diameter, go with hardwood. Yes, I am now standing because my knee hurt from kneeling on the cement. The DeWalt planer weighs just under 100 pounds, and the rigid sander weighs about 40, I think. So whatever hardware gets used needs to hold at least 140 pounds, and that doesn't include the plywood I use for the tabletop. Here's a little glimpse into what is going on behind this very organized workshop. I have my laptop and a few things kind of messy on the laser. I have a bunch of little tools and accessories that I moved from my shop for the video, and I have a bunch of boxes. Some are unopened with tools in them, some are opened with things in them. I have this nice piece of wood I got from the mountains, and I have a bunch of boxes that are empty that need to be put in the recycling. My shop is not always this organized. I make it this organized because I think it makes for a nicer video. And the secret is many woodworkers on YouTube do the same thing. So don't feel bad if your shop is not as nice and tidy as the shops you see on YouTube. Let me know if you have any questions in the comments, and here's a video I think you're really going to like, so I'll see you there.